bring the regular council meeting of Cook Town Council to order, 7 October 2019. Please join with me in the invocation. Join me in the Lord's Prayer, please. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and give us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever.
please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, There are hundreds of rental properties in Blackstone, even more in Blackstone than in Crew.
We will have Ms. Wilson, what we can do is
All right,
schedule a learning
okay.
workshop, bring Ms. Wilson in if she's willing to come to talk to those issues, the town perspective.
And I'm assuming, one other thing I see on here, which frankly I think is illegal, and this is on the last page, tenants will need to bring in a valid ID, don't have a problem with that, a social security card. If you're not an American citizen, you don't have a
I
social
don't set
security
those
card.
plans, I don't set those guidelines for the.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know who drafted that, but I think that's illegal.
I believe that's just the town of Blackstone. Is that right?
Yes, it's the town of Blackstone.
Yeah, well, I think that's illegal. I don't think you can legally do that.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler, do you have any questions?
Dominion Power does utilities for the town of Crew. Are they gonna let us pay them $20 to keep the electricity on? I presently have to take a generator to work on my building.
Good point.
Good point, yep.
And
That
I
is-
don't hardly think they wouldn't do it.
You're right, because we fall under different, they have their own electrical plant in Blackstone, correct? So that would be,
Yes.
so that would be totally different for us.
We have some properties in Blackstone that are under Southside Electric. We have the utility, we have the utilities turned on.
Okay, they can do that, Southside will do that for $20?
I don't know, no, they won't do it for 20.
Okay. All right. Your landlord, ma'am?
I'm not a landlord, but I have my resident approved.
Okay, let me hit the landlord first, I'll come back to you. Can I do that? Ms. Jones, you have a rental property here in town, did you want to speak to this issue?
Yes, I don't want to speak about what you all are talking about.
No,
I have a separate issue.
Yeah, we'll save that for later then. We'll save
Okay.
that issue for later. All right, Ms. Yates?
You know my history a little bit. I was a real estate agent for 32 years, licensed 32 years, actively sold for 22. Sold multi-millions of dollars worth of real estate and have managed hundreds and hundreds of properties. I'm just curious, Carolyn, what you do to screen your clientele when you rent. I'm just curious as to, because I believe, as I'm hearing all of this tonight, that there's a lot of responsibility that's incumbent upon the owner of the property or whoever manages the property to be selective about who they rent to. And when you are selective to who you rent to, then you minimize all these problems that we're talking about, I know, because I've been a landlord. So you can choose to be the kind of landlord that just hands over the keys to anybody that walks up to the door, you
Jim,
know?
Do you have a
Or,
question?
yeah, I just asked her.
Okay.
Well,
Did you not hear it?
I don't know what,
Give her a chance to answer.
I don't know what my screening process has to do with this, but I'll tell you what it is. We get an extensive rental application. We get approval from them to run their credit through Equifax, and we do a rental history check. Our requirements is they make 3 times the amount of the rent, so they have to provide us with photo ID and proof of their income.
Very good. That's what I was asking, because myself, that is also what we did. We always ran a credit report, I still do, run a credit report and do the proper things to exercise some nominal amount of judgment as a landlord, and many, many of the problems can be avoided. So, I do think that we have lots and lots of landlords in the world that do not exercise that kind of judgment, and they get hurt, they get burned. So, I guess maybe that's a
They
comment,
do.
Ricky.
Any other,
But that has nothing to do with.
any other landlords that I might have missed that have a
Conditions of
question?
I would like to add to what she said, in the town of Crew, our house is kind of like monitored by that grant. And we have to put lower moderate income people in the house.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what's causing all of our problems.
We're gonna get to your issue.
Okay.
And you had a question?
I do. I have a just for the council.
On this
Who-
issue?
Yes. I live in a house that the person that, I believe you own that house.
I don't know.
That's right beside me.
I don't know.
Maryland Avenue.
Which house do you live in?
I live at 507 Maryland Avenue. I believe you own the house that's right beside me.
Who occupies it, do you know?
I don't know,
Figure out where it
their
is.
names.
Okay.
But my question is I've had to have my house exterminated, and that's never happened to me before. And I have 4 the property that you own beside me has 4 tires in the front yard. And they have weeds growing out of the gutters. So how am I protected against that?
What address is that, ma'am?
507 East Maryland Avenue.
That's the address with the tires.
That's the address that I live at.
Okay, what was the one with the tires?
It's to the left of me.
Probably 509.
I'm trying to
Am
figure
I
out.
protected against that in any way? Do I have any rights?
Please make a complaint.
Exactly.
And then,
Exactly.
and that's why I'm trying this.
We have a complaint. I'm gonna talk to this a little bit too. 509 East Avenue. Any other questions, Ms. Davis, on this
If
issue?
you have any insight in it, that would be, if you have any insight in that, that would be great.
Well,
Because I mean, you know, if I tried to sell my house, I don't know who would buy it.
we have had people call us at our office and tell us that there were issues going on in properties that we managed, and we try to address that as we can. Also, the town.
I wouldn't know who to call.
The town of Blackstone has ordinances that prohibit cars that aren't licensed, grass that's too tall, and things like
Okay, ma'am, you had a question on this issue?
So where would we go to complain?
Well, it depends on what it is. I would go to the landlord first, depending on what it is. If it's an inoperable vehicle, we do have an inoperative vehicle ordinance that we put
Well,
in.
that and about the house, got the grass. So I have been to the town
Yes, ma'am.
when we walk over there.
Well, we have a grass
I didn't
cutting
say
ordinance
how that
right
came.
here.
What's your
It's
address?
done now.
203 Guy Avenue. Yeah.
It's typical for a landlord to charge or receive a security deposit, right? Is that
Yes.
typically 1 month's rent or first and last?
that. Typically 1 month.
So in the event that a tenant were to leave and leave the landlord holding bag with all that, they'd be entitled to keep that security deposit at that point, correct?
If they have to notify the tenant within 45 days of any damages and what they are.
All right, are there any more questions from council or from the audience for Ms. Davis on this issue? With that in mind, we want to thank you very much for taking time out of your night to come here and address us and enlighten us a little bit as to how it works in Blackstone, particularly from your perspective as a landlord
Thank you.
and property manager. And we'll probably be in touch with Ms. Wilson to get the town of Blackstone perspective as well.
I think that there's always a lot of bugs to work out in any new program like this, but I think that this is a win-win for everybody involved. Thank you for your
Thank you
time.
so
Thank
much,
you for your
Carolyn.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Stegall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Baxter Stegoff from Tennessee Avenue. Mr. Mayor, members of council, with the vice mayor's consent, before you got here, Mr. Mayor, I distributed a small packet to the members of council. I want to speak briefly. Certainly the council is aware that I'm running for Commonwealth's attorney. This is not so much a stump speech as something I'd like to offer the town and its citizens if I'm elected. And that is, in my opinion, two of the most important traits of any public servant. I've been a public servant my entire adult life, are transparency and accountability. Each month, your police chief, and has been for a number of years, probably since Chief Abel sat in that chair, submit a report of its activities to this council for review as well as for citizen comment and question. Rarely, however, do the citizens have the ability to follow up on the status of those cases. Not that the citizens are concerned so much with how many stop signs got ran, but some of the more serious crimes that happen in the county. Now, I'm offering to the council and to the people of Crew, if elected, to hold myself accountable to its people, the citizens of the county, and to the citizens in the town, because certainly they are citizens of the county as well, by offering to provide a monthly status report of the activities of the Office of the Commonwealth's Attorney. I'll also make an attorney from the office available at every meeting, certainly not asking to speak each time, but make one available if the council or if the council has questions from that office. I'm not going to hog any time of the council, but if the council has questions, and then afterwards certainly might be citizens if they have questions.
I've submitted a report. If you'll notice, I've created the county of Pickett. I've stolen the General Assembly's directives and made my own county. And the purpose of that is to be able to offer a notional report that if it got left behind, someone wouldn't stumble along and think they were looking at crime reports from Nottoway and be alarmed with my fake numbers on there. But this is just an idea. It's the basic kind of thing I'd like to offer if I am elected, both to hold myself accountable to the citizens and to this council. These things can be, for the citizens that can't see it, it's number of indictments on the last grand jury term, number of indictments year to date. That would not include sealed indictments. I think everyone can understand why.
Yes, I'd rather some folks go ahead.
The number of felony charges within the last report month, as well as the year to date, number of misdemeanor charges, and then certain highlights within those. If there's a homicide, if there's particularly aggravated assaults, DUIs or a misdemeanor that often attract attention, those sorts of things. And then if you notice on the second page, there might be a brief recap of particular incidents of note. And the point of this is not to subvert any of the power of the citizens of Crewe in their council meeting, but merely to offer this information. It's not being offered now. It has not been offered since I've been around. And I think it is a good way that this office, if I were to be elected, might hold itself accountable to the citizens, hold me accountable to the citizens, and allow you guys to follow up on the fine work that your police department's doing, see where things go once they get to court. So, I appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, I want to be very brief. I don't want to hold your time. I know you have more important things to do. than
Any
listen to
questions
me.
from members of council, Mr. Bismarck? Mr. Abel? Mike? All right.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Yes, sir.
Once again, we understand since this is passed around that it is fictional, it's not.
Whoever gets it last, just give it to me or put it up here on the table. Ms. Jones? This is Mrs. Linda Jones.
I'm bringing my concerns to the town council because I haven't been able to talk to Mr. Walker when he was in office. First I said, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and town council members. I'm gonna read mine because I signed up on the little sheet that said 5 minutes, so I'm gonna read. My name is Linda Oliver Jones. I'm here with my sisters Evelyn Coleman and Angela Hawks and her husband. We are owners of 411 Liston Street. My parents built this home 55 years ago and have had water service since that time. Our father died in 1995 and our mom died in 2004. We have rented the home since 2005 and have never had any issues with the utilities. I don't feel we should have had to come to this meeting tonight. I came by the office a couple of times to see the town manager, Wade Walker. I called many times to talk to him. I was told several times, he just got to the office, he's not here, or I don't know when he's coming back. After all of that, one of the ladies told me to leave my number for him to call me. He never did. I feel he just evaded seeing me or discussing this matter. I realized that he retired on October the 1st, but this was a long time before that. I placed one last call, and Nora told me that he said it is in the town audience that the owners are responsible for paying the utility bill for the residents. I read the audience and I fully understand it, but I feel there's a loophole in our situation. We signed a lease with Rachel Jackson on January the 8th, 2019. She told us shortly after that, she had electricity and the water turned on. I went into the home and both the electricity and water were on. I always check to make sure the utilities are on before allowing a person to move in. On July 22nd, 2019, 6 months later, I received a utility bill in my home in Blackstone from the town of Crewe. I called to the town office to see what was going on. At that time, I was informed that the renter of our house, Rachel Jackson, had not made application to the town for water service. The town picked up garbage all that time, yet we were notified 6 months later about this utility bill. The water was turned off, I think somewhere around mid-July. Later, I was informed that when they read the meter again, she had used an additional 2,500 gallons of water. Apparently, she was still having someone to turn that water on, so the town took the meter completely out. Why are we required to pay this bill? I have the lease agreement that she signed, have receipts where she paid the rent, have papers she filled out with the grant office in South Boston to live there, have copies of her electric bills from Dominion Energy, have the eviction notice, have many text messages since that time where I have discussed this utility bill with her and who illegally turned the water on for her. She would not tell me who turned the water on. This is proof enough that she lived there. She kept telling me she was going to take care of it. I called to the office, town office several times checking to see if Breasia had paid to get the water turned on. The lady at the office told me that Breasia inquired about how much she needed to pay to get the water turned on legally. She said she told Breasia that she needed to pay $300 to make application, pay the bill for Lipscomb Street, and pay another bill she left from another place she had lived in Crewe so that water could be turned on for her. We have several things that have to be considered here. You failed to notify us in a timely manner about this. You collected garbage the whole time, yet we were notified 6 months after the fact. I have lots of documentation that Breasia actually lived there. Breasia contacted the town hall about paying this bill. It is evident that she continued to use water after the water was turned off. As a result, you took the meter out. No, it's apparent that Breasia did not make application to live at 411 Lipscomb Street, but she is indeed a customer of the town and she has a previous unpaid account with you. As stated in your town ordinance 74-22, the property owner shall be responsible for all the payments due for utilities. If this is true, how come the place where she previously lived didn't pay her unpaid utility bill to the town? Whether she made application to the town or not, I have enough documentation that she did live there. With all that being said, I don't feel we should be liable for this utility bill. Breasia Jackson's illegal acts against the town should be her responsibility to pay, not ours. We are making the following request from the town tonight. Do not hold us accountable for the utility bill or replacing the water meter. Number 2, put the meter back in place as soon as possible so a new renter can make application to the town and move into the house. 3, hold Breasia Jackson liable for that utility bill, tampering with the meter, pretending to use water after water was cut off, and the cost, if any, to put the meter back in. Also, please be reminded that this property is under the Crewe renovation grant, and it has to be occupied in a timely manner after each renter is evicted or leaves at the end of their lease. Currently, she lives at 901 3rd Street with her parents. And one more thing I'm gonna add, she left her furniture in the house as well. Didn't take anything out of 3 keys on them. My brother, my brother-in-law, and myself, we moved 6 truckloads of stuff out of the house. She wouldn't move out of there. Thanks for listening to my concerns and allowing me to speak to you tonight. Thank you.
Is your contact information on your statement?
She lives at 901.
No, is your contact information on the statement? I'm gonna give us some town attorney.
Okay, no. My address?
Yes, ma'am.
I live in Jackson. That's my home phone. And 298. That's 3 is my cell.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll be in touch with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that everything?
That's just the ordinance, town ordinance, that highlights stuff in it that I read, this is your name.
That belongs to Mr. Seagal.
Mayor, what is the town's policy? Is it to keep delinquent tax bills or delinquent water bills with the property or the renter?
Goes with the property, is the way I always understood it, yes. It goes with the property, and if the renter doesn't pay, the landlord has to pay. That is the way I've always understood it. That, and I see that.
Pay the many of them.
Yep, landlord shaking his head yes in the affirmative.
Thank you.
So, right. But this is one of those special properties.
Oh, right, right.
Down there, and that's why I wanted to.
Right, well, the other property she mentioned too.
Right. Yeah. All right. Mrs. Yates, Susan Christian Yates.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
Hello, of course you all know who I am, Sue Yates. There are those of you who are not pleased with me at this current time. This has been made abundantly clear to me. With that being said, and put out there for all us to know and understand, I want you all to know with great clarity that I have this town's best interest at heart. About a month ago, I was quoted as saying that our town is a mess. Well, this is a fact. I understand that my openness was disturbing. Well, ignoring it is not an option. We cannot fix our town if we don't have real discussions about how to fix the things in our town that are broken. We need help from anyone that will give it to us, and that would include our county government. I want you to know that I love this town. I came here over 10 years ago with the intent of making this my home forever. Now, sadly, I am left to wonder if that remains a viable option. I don't want to feel unsafe and sad about the deterioration of what was once described as a beautiful and safe place to live. And it is a sad commentary that this is what many of our older citizens are feeling. Before I start with what I want to say tonight, I am going to give you just a little bit of background on myself, so that as you listen to me, you realize that I have a background in many of the problems you're having. I actively sold real estate for over 22 years, with a volume of sales that exceeded $40 million. This was achieved during a time when the average home sale was around $60,000. Additionally, I was part owner in a successful engineering firm that designed water and wastewater treatment facilities for municipalities. We also worked with storm drainage. I have now sold insurance for over 12 years. I believe that my background should lay some credence to my thoughts, concerns, and recommendations. But the reason I chose to have myself put on this calendar this night is not because of anything I have just told you, but because I read our local newspaper. I was appalled to read that we are looking at a $25 million project to repair water lines and infrastructure in order to meet the specifications and the requirements of VCBR while they do their sadly needed renovations and expansions. I see this as a sad commentary in that these types of facilities are growing. It does not bode well to what is happening in our society. It has unfortunately come to all of us in our small rural community. With this being said, their demands and needs should not have been a surprise to anyone in this town. These piping infrastructure problems have been talked about for over 15 years, and this town and its management knew that these water infrastructure problems were a ticking time bomb due to disrepair and ongoing maintenance. When infrastructure is not properly maintained, it leads to a quicker corrosion of our systems. If the choice of our town leaders was to hold off for as long as possible, then at a minimum, the leaders should have been better stewards and much more proactive in quality maintenance of our infrastructure. There are many ways to ensure long life infrastructure. All this could have been done over time for a much lower cost. And now our citizens are going to pay the bill. Many of the problems that we are having today are the very direct result of a management hierarchy that chose to do almost nothing. Towns and cities have ordinances for a reason. They are not there to be ignored, but serve as a pathway to stay on, to ensure maximum lifetime usage to maintain our infrastructure. Hold on, something's mixed up. town manager recently stepped down. There are those of you that see this as something terrible. I do not. In fact, I see it as an overdue chance to make changes in this town that have been needed for a very long time. I will share with you just a couple of examples. On a personal note, I went to town hall and repeatedly complained about an abandoned vehicle that was left on the street, blocking our storm drains with piling up debris around the car. It took 3 years to get the problem vehicle moved. That same corner with the same storm drain is now being blocked by another abandoned vehicle. I asked, why? I was demeaned and asked, why was a stupid little car so upsetting to me? With this being said, I was recently told that there were 77 abandoned vehicle notices that were sent out at the same time. I ask you, what town this size should have 77 abandoned vehicles all at one time? This is indefensible at best. This was the result of no notices going out for a very long time, and then when they did, they were not followed through on, just like the car I just used as an example. You know, the one that sits on the very same street corner in front of the very same storm drain with all the debris piled up on it. We recently had an enormous house fire that could have taken somebody's life. Because of the condition of the yard, the firefighter's path was impaired by the junk in the yard. The disrepair of that home and its yard has been going on for over 1 year. Today, it still sits there with all its junk impairing any safe pathway that our fire department could use if there was yet another fire. The only difference now is that the house has been burned up and will most likely get torn down. I believe that this town's management, or lack thereof, was to some degree culpable. The debris in the yard that was the beginning to the end game. I have now been told in writing that the house fire overcame the junk. In fact, I was even told that it was the hopes of the town manager that the insurance company would clean up the yard. This is laughable, in that the debris that lay in the yard prior to the fire was most certainly not the responsibility of the insurance company. There is still another house on the lot to be concerned with, and there is another house that sits next door. It is time to clean up the yard. The insurance company will take care of the fire and the remnants thereof, not the debris. It is not the responsibility of the insurance company to clean up a yard that was an unsafe, unhealthy mess before the fire started. I have to get a drink, guys. This house fire has had a big impact on this community in that it was a perfect example of the functional obsolescence that we are seeing in our town. This property and other properties like it serve only to be a nuisance. They cause good neighbors' properties to go down in value. They cause unhealthy conditions, and they lead to disasters like we just had. I feel a sense of sadness for our handicapped citizens that are forced to drive their electric wheelchairs down the middle of our roads instead of safe sidewalks. Our sidewalks have been allowed to deteriorate over the years with the excuse that they are the responsibility of VDOT. This would not be true. Last month, I was challenged by our mayor and our previous town manager regarding the sidewalks. When I stated that VDOT owned a very small portion of sidewalks, perhaps 10 blocks, I was challenged and told that I was incorrect. I want you all to know that I was absolutely correct. I want you all to know that I'm working from the same exact map that the town was given about 3 years ago. In fact, I will go a step further. The very same VDOT representative that gave the town a map gave me the same exact map. I could go on and on with examples, but it would only work to alienate me even further. With all this being said, myself, as are others that I have spoken to, are concerned about what the qualifications of the new town manager will be, since there is so much that needs to be done for Crewe. I cite the following problems. We have a major drug problem. We are developing a large crime problem. We have a major problem with an excess of unkempt rental properties. We have abandoned buildings that need to be taken down. We have sidewalks that do not even meet a bare minimum requirement to be ADA compliant. We have an abandoned car issue. We have fire department and EMS issues. Our infrastructure regarding our storm drains and sewage drains that are in need of help. We need our attorney to become more knowledgeable about the workings in the town. And we need our town attorney to get back to us quickly. We need economic development. However, this is impossible with all these issues to deal with. Plain and simple, we will not grow. Bringing these thoughts to a town council meeting in an open forum only looks like a way to complain. And this is not what I want this all to be viewed as. Rather, I would hope that I can be a part of the solution by coming up with ideas that I have obtained from many hours of research. I have researched grants, maintenance policies, developing programs such as historical grants, art grants, sidewalk grants, a neighborhood watch, and much more for this town. I even obtained a full-blown proposal to repair the sidewalks that could be repaired at a fraction of the cost of putting in new sidewalks. I have been putting together thoughts and research on how to reach out to those that are drug addicted. We need to create actions that will bring back a sense of community. But first I need to know that the town has not closed its ears and eyes and is open to the thoughts and feelings of a good old town. Now that I have briefly talked about some of the problems in this town, I would like to know what the qualifications for a new town manager will be. I have taken the time to list just a few of the qualifications that I believe our new town manager should have. First, a town manager, first and foremost, we need one that will be a good steward over the town. This involves many of the aspects of management and character. A town manager that wants to be a town manager is for openers. 2, we need a town manager with a vision. 3, we need a town manager that is strong and willing to enforce our ordinances and the kickback when residents complain about being forced to be compliant. 4, a town manager that is pleasant in his or her dealings. 5, a town manager that will not succumb to the good old boys. In short, we cannot have 2 tiers of justice in the town. What is good for one should be good for the other. And I'm going to bring up an example of what I think is one of the good old boys. Was every rental owner in this town advised of this meeting tonight, or just Larry Williams? Don't answer the question.
Madam, you're here to talk to council, you're not here to hurl insults at individuals, or hurl rumor, or innuendo at individuals.
A town manager that will, okay, hold on. A town manager that cannot only write grants, but can see the importance of grants. A town manager must be excited about what they are embarking on. They must have the ability to multitask. We need someone that is good with numbers.
Thank you.
You're going to provide a statement, copy of your statement to the town clerk. We'll get back to you in writing.
I was told I have a little bit more.
And you've used about 10 minutes.
I was told I was asked to be put on the agenda tonight.
Very well, proceed.
10, we will need someone that is willing to be a trailblazer. 11,
Council is invoking the 5-minute rule, ma'am. If
We
you
gave
will,
you well beyond 5 minutes.
I was asked to be put on the agenda, which
5
allows
minutes
me
is
more
the
than.
time limit.
No, 5 minutes is.
And we've gone well beyond 5 minutes.
Then I'll bring the rest of it to the next meeting.
if you would give a copy of your statement to the town clerk, we can get back to you in writing.
Not until it's done being read.
All right, any other delegations from the public?
That was not a delegation, it was, I was asked to be on the calendar. I was asked to have the time to do this tonight, or I asked.
You
to have
asked to have the time to do it, yes, ma'am.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
didn't do it as a delegation from the public.
Well, you're in that, fine. If you would give a copy to the town clerk, we will have a PDF to every member of council.
I will
and
when
you-
I-
And
when
you
I
will get a
have-
response.
And I will give it over when it is done being read.
All right. We now move to the consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be approved by one motion. Any item can be removed from the calendar at the request of a member of council and may be voted on separately. You have in your packets the minutes of the town council meeting held on 9 September 2019, minutes of the town council work session held on 19 September 2019, the bill sheet and the additions.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent calendar.
All right.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. We have no town manager's report tonight. Town attorney's report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First, I have provided everybody with a memorandum detailing everything that I am doing for the town. Secondly, if there's anything that you all need, please just let me know and I will be glad to get back with you. Third, and probably most importantly this month on my memorandum, it lets you all know that we do have a court date on the Watson property, which is on October the 28th.
The Watson property is a property across the street.
Yes, so on that day is when we will be asking the court for permission to tear the property down. And then I've already arranged for our witnesses to be there as well.
Very good.
So if you all have any questions, let me know. And also, I noticed in continuing business or new business about debt collections, I have been assisting the town with collecting delinquent taxes. We have been very successful in that. I would say we have around, at this point, a 50% collection rate. So we're going to continue to proceed with that collection.
Does any member of the council have any questions for the town attorney? Thank you, ma'am. All right, mayor's report.
Mayor, before we go to the mayor's report, can you move item C to later on?
I can.
Perfect.
And if,
Under, yeah, we'll stick it under
Executive session.
executive session.
Falls under this.
Yes, but this is just a general statement.
Okay, very
That was
good.
just a general
Gotcha.
statement.
Yeah.
Okay. The Department of Corrections has requested preliminary engineering report for the water issue. The $35,000 they provided will fund the PER. That money has been deposited with the town approved. Council needs to authorize certain profit to conduct the PER at a cost not to exceed $35,000. You have a late addition in your package tonight. Basically the proposal from certain profit to the engineering report. That money was initially to go for the larger grant. You will recall that they were going to provide that, but they have requested that we do the preliminary engineering report and use that money for that. And that was communicated to Wade and to Mike Wilson, the engineer.
Do we bid that out?
We did not bid that out.
Any other engineering firms?
We did not, but that's because DOC wanted it fairly quickly. Now, if you want to bid it out, that's fine. I told them to come back with a proposal, and I told them it can't exceed $35,000, which is exactly what the price is.
Yeah.
I knew that.
I noticed that.
What is council's pleasure?
Mayor, I move that we move forward with Hart and Profit,
All right?
not to exceed 35.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to move forward with the engineering report, not to exceed $35,000 in cost. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, by like sign.
Aye.
You opposed?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Still passed.
Before I-
We got you.
I
got a little confused on that too. so.
Okay. The water rate study, Hurt and Profit are engaged in conducting a water rate study per council's request. Council needs to make a decision on whether it wishes to wean itself from providing water to state facilities, which means a loss of revenues, or to proceed and attempt to make the infrastructure improvements on its own in coordination with state agencies and passing the cost on to large consumers of water feasibly. It may be several months before the rate study is complete. If the council wishes to move forward with infrastructure improvements, it may be beneficial to advertise and implement large consumer and out-of-town consumer rate hikes as discussed in the 18th September meeting that was basically outlined in the letter from the mayor to council. Now, we could advertise the rate hikes, or we could continue to wait until the study's done. And I would assume that's probably your preference, but.
Well, I make the motion that we go ahead and advertise rate hikes for large consumers and out-of-town consumers.
Okay.
But, great, thanks to what?
Again, we gotta have the report so we know.
Well, I
what
know,
we're
but I mean,
raising.
we
We
can.
have to know what we're gonna raise them to in
Yeah.
order to have the hearing.
Yeah.
So, all right, very well, then I withdraw the motion.
All right. Motion is withdrawn. So is it the consensus of council to wait for the engineering study or to put an arbitrary number for a rate hike for the large consumers of water?
I'd say we wait.
All right. Mr. Reed?
I guess we have to wait till we have a number.
Ms. Bowman? Mr. Duffy?
Yeah, I said, wait till we get a number.
We want to get it right.
All right, good enough. We only want to do it once then. Very good. Town manager search. Council has been provided with copies of a crew town manager job description and a Chase City town manager job description. Council has also had discussion points to consider from the 19th September work session. Councilman Miskovic should have the results of the council survey to be shared. They are in fact in your package. Sometime tonight, council, and we'll probably do this in executive session after that, council needs to identify the preferred qualifications and experience desired and authorize advertising for a new town manager. Disregard item D, that check was in the mail and I didn't know it. So, you also have in your packet the VDOT crosswalk engineering plan. VDOT has provided an updated crosswalk engineering plan for the area discussed on Route 460 across from the railroad park. The town and crew will have to bear the cost. I have requested an estimate for that cost. I have received an email from Ms. Bryan, and she says that all of the work and costs associated with this crosswalk would be borne by the town. The final piece of work would actually be the painting of the crosswalk, and VDOT will perform that for $1,500 or less. So
That's all?
yeah, well, we have to do the engineering work. So,
We budgeted 10,000? That's what I was gonna say.
Well, it was 5,000 for the crosswalk and 5,000 for kiosks,
Oh,
I think. But I don't mind using the whole 10,000 for crosswalk. If
Sounds
we get
like
this
it.
crosswalk done, here's how we ask for it.
well, 10,000 covered.
Almost $50,000
For the crosswalk?
for some reason, yeah. Because Wade and I had been talking about that for months. Something about 50,000. I don't know why it's in the back of my head there. But, you know, he's not here to say anything about it, but, you know.
Did she give an estimate for,
She did not. See, we would have to advertise that. That's one of those, because she can't get into the private business, and we would have to advertise that, and an appropriate contractor, engineer would have to come forward and make a proposal. Now, I have a follow-on question. Is there any reason that we didn't decide to put the, I mean, y'all were discussing this before I came here. Is there any reason we didn't put the crosswalk up there where the stoplight is, where you could possibly get one of those green and red men signs, and then build a sidewalk down that?
well, it would involve building a sidewalk, and that hill's pretty steep, I believe. So they're right next to
You
the
got a
railroad
safety
museum.
concern, got a good safety concern, you know, all
Right.
too.
So you have the, right at that sidewalk, it's flat, but then it goes up on a hill,
Right.
and they have the fence surrounding the railroad museum, so it would require some.
What if we got a ramp though? I mean, if we had a ramp, we could, you know, somebody in a wheelchair could go up it.
Well, it's more about being able to walk across it without,
Okay.
And
Just,
I don't know,
a
we'd
thought.
have to, walk it and see.
Forgive my ignorance, but what does a crosswalk do where it's worth 10 grand or 15,000? I mean, I walk across there with the kids.
Yeah, I wasn't on 8 years ago when
All the
y'all
time.
decided that, but
I believe the
It's a safety
crosswalk
hazard.
was designed as a safety hazard primarily, for safety
to
reasons.
increase.
And I'm not being facetious, but how does it make it safe?
Well, because
Just
it's.
lines painted on the road?
Well, and it's also
You'll
signs,
have
on
the
either side of
lines,
the
you'll
road.
have the, you'll have.
Can we not put a sign up for
handicap
less than-
access off the sidewalks, and then you'll have various state signs that we put up. I would assume,
We
you never
can't put-
assume anything.
We can't put signs up for less than 10 grand? It says crosswalk? I mean, I don't know, I mean, it just sounds
And
ridiculous to
painted?
me,
Yeah, I
honestly.
mean-
Yeah, me too.
$1,500, maybe.
Yeah, we know how much that
Yeah,
is.
That all depends on VDOT regulations because it's 460.
It's VDOT property, and the sidewalks are VDOT right away.
I mean, I personally, save a stop, unless it's a stoplight, nothing's gonna be safe across 460.
I don't see it being
And
operational.
I'm not, because if you've been through Greenfront Furniture in Farmville, the traffic don't stop all the time for them. They're supposed to, but they don't. I mean, I'm just, $10,000.
Well, that's what kind of led me to the lights too. All right,
Well, it's
y'all,
$10,000 budgeted.
yeah, that's what was budgeted. So you wanna-
1,500 is paint.
Yeah, but the engineer,
Oh,
see,
so-
When you
But
hear
we're
one
really able
engineer,
to
you're not getting out of there for
bucket
less than 10
brush.
grand.
Right, yeah.
So do you want to hold off on this for later? Table this discussion? Or
Well, I reckon we need to find out how much it's gonna cost.
Well, that would mean.
With the
Well,
engineer.
We gotta pay to find out.
Oh, jeez.
You have to request for proposal.
Let's hold off until the new town manager, because I don't want to put all that on the
All right.
town clerk.
Is
Thank you.
concur?
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I just got one question. What are they gonna put there with that? Footbridge going up and over?
Sounds like a crosswalk.
Was
We're
it
gonna
that
be-
price?
White lines going across.
I bet we could build our upbridge and one over it for less than 10 grand. Then we don't have to ask VDOT, right?
Yeah, we
Still
absolutely
got
have to
to
ask.
still got to rent,
For
still got to-
something across there.
Then you got,
across the
height
road.
restrictions.
All right, one item not on my calendar. The chief has implemented a new procedure. He's got complaint reports in each of the police cars. Each of the officers have copies, multiple copies of ordinance for inoperable vehicles, cutting grass and removal of weeds, allowing mobile homes to be used for dwellings outside of parks, for example, are prohibited, and also garbage cans and whatnot.
That's talking about the one with mobile homes, you're talking about RVs, correct?
Well, yeah, you can't live in it if it's
Yeah.
not, yeah. The bottom line is that the officers are patrolling with these now, and they're stopping, and when they go, they're writing a report, they're giving them the ordinance, and then they're making them sign a piece of paper that they did in fact receive the ordinance and were given proper notification.
Great idea.
The house down here that burned up, the people next door basically moved all their junk next door to the new rental there.
Yeah,
They've already been
another
cited.
rental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been cited, it's been cited, and they will be cited for every 7 days until it's cleaned up. And they're fairly aggressive on this right now. You will notice an increase in ordinance in the police report.
Did you say it was cited every 7 days?
Every 7 days you can cite them, yes.
Okay, and when they cite them, what are they doing?
Well, I
Give
mean,
them a summons, go to court?
yeah, violation of ordinance. Uh-huh.
Okay, that's what I want to know, if they're going to court, because the judge can stop it, like what?
Yeah.
Are they issuing that to the landlord as well?
I don't know. I think it's going strictly to the owner or the resident at this time. Yeah? All right. Committee reports. Finance Committee, Ms. Stinson.
We're doing what we're supposed to.
All right. Personnel, Mr. Reed.
We're gonna have a lengthy discussion about the town manager position. Other than that, there's nothing to report.
Okay. Community Development, Ms. Bowe.
Nothing.
Very good. Continuing business, strategic organizational assessment, Councilman Miskovic.
Thank you. We spoke at our special meeting a couple weeks ago about the strategic organizational assessment that Berkeley Group reviewed for us. Have we had any more opportunity to think about that, or do we want to table that again?
I would table it. I don't think, you're talking about the thing that Amherst paid big money for?
Right.
Yeah, I read it, I looked at it. Frankly, I don't think we're at that point yet. Why don't we wait till the new town manager comes in? There might be a grant out there for that kind of thing, because I'm just one guy talking, but I mean, I don't see us spending $25,000 for that.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Agree with. Thank you.
Okay, we'll table it.
All right. Land bank meeting, Mr. Miskovic.
You have a report in your packet regarding the land bank meeting that the vice mayor, the mayor, and I attended on 9/26. Notes are at the top. Then I reiterated the benefits of land banks, some questions for the town attorney, that the town attorney has since answered for me. The legal definition of blight is pretty much straightforward, or pretty much all straightforward and all encompassing. So the way I read it, blight means any area that endangers the public health, safety, or welfare, or any area that is detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare because of whatever reasons. So that's pretty broad, because it's a pretty broad interpretation, especially for welfare. As you know, the federal government does all of its programs because of the general welfare clause of the Constitution. So welfare means quite a bit, or can mean whatever we want it to mean, within reason. As long as we can justify our reasons. Is that accurate? Okay.
Yes.
So,
Well, it's pretty subjective. We would have to have obviously some objective reasons behind it. So yes.
perfect. So we got that, pros and cons, okay. So the town attorney's gone back to me on all that. Action steps. With staff support, the mayor and town attorney, like we had mentioned earlier, complete a roadside assessment of all property in town, given that definition of blight and whatever your interpretations of blight are. And then sent to the Economic Development Committee a list of property address, whether the property is vacant, occupied, or unknown, whether the property is residential, business, or unknown, whether the property is owner occupied or rented, an initial assessment of blight, moderate blight, or severe blight. So then the Economic Development Committee can go through all those steps that you see written there, and we can move forward with understanding the blight through because we have the data at hand and moving forward. Thoughts?
It's working pretty good in these 4.
So it hasn't started in, where are we? Back to the first page. They've been established. The one, Richmond has just started the process, so they just took the title. They haven't done it, and most of the lots in Richmond are vacant lots. So there's nothing on them, so it's easier to sell. It's Richmond, so property goes like that. Chesapeake, I believe goes well because they've invested $1 million. Roanoke is going with nonprofit and Habitat for Humanity. Danville, I believe, is starting to work pretty well. I'll ask them when I see them at the BNL conference tomorrow morning. But it's a relatively new concept.
Vice Mayor, do you have any comments you were in the meeting?
Yeah, well, it was very informative. She did a really good job of explaining how land banks work. We're going to come back to the big question, funding.
Who's going to buy it? Who's going to buy the property, correct?
Well, and those are things that the Economic Development Committee will talk amongst ourselves and figure out and report back to council, so that we don't have to discuss in council
Yeah.
meetings.
Any questions for Mr. Miskovic from council?
Okay, and your thoughts on would you and the town attorney be willing to go through block by block and?
I don't know, the town attorney's got time.
Okay.
I will do it.
Okay.
I can schedule some time, or if there's a more cost-effective way,
I think
you all want to.
the best way, maybe if you do it and then anything questionable, just mark for the town attorney.
I will get in
so.
a police car on a shift and we will go all over town.
Perfect.
Okay?
That'll work.
Okay?
Cassie makes too much to go house to house.
Yeah.
I can, but.
I get paid about $1 a day, so. All right. Norfolk Southern Building Grants update, Councilman Miskovic.
Yep, turned in that grant. I have a report I'll pass around. It's a 61-page report created over the last several weeks on basically everything, and I'll send it out via email too. I had to take a couple days off work. But it basically describes everything in detail, what we are looking at and the partnerships involved and the electric support that we got for that.
Okay.
So that's the TAP grant is submitted. I'm also going to use that as baseline for submitting for the BEDP grant, and then I've identified in there primary sources of funding, which are the TAP and BEDP grant. Secondary sources of funding, including the DHCD grants and other grants, and then tertiary sources of funding might be USDA loans or something like that. But again, we'd come to those decisions one by one.
When you shoot that out, include the town clerk in it.
Sure.
Email. All right?
Thank you for working on it.
Yeah, that's a lot of work there.
Yeah, can we get the cliff notes?
Yeah, we want
first?
the cliff notes.
That's the executive summary on the first few pages.
All right. Cemetery maps, Mr. Bishop.
I'm sorry?
Cemetery maps.
Oh,
We have a buck.
yes. Okay. Cemetery maps are in the process of being digitized. I just haven't had a chance to go through and input everyone's plot in there yet. So that's on me. But for the funding request, before I go into that, I was at the VML conference for the past couple days, and I met with a vendor who does, specializes in digitizing everything about a locality and mapping it. So everything from property to water and sewer lines to fire hydrants, everything we can pull up online and look at it and be able to adjust. It's really a way to assess, to compile our data and assess things. Police department can go in and input where crimes occur, and we can look for hotspots. We can use the data already online and input property cards and things like that. They can also do our cemetery as well. They're already working with Victoria and Cambridge on digitizing their maps. They're beneficial. This one vendor is beneficial because they have a more user-friendly system than the general ArcGIS, which is the software that everyone uses, but it's a little bit harder to understand.
Right.
They're willing to do it, and it's also unlimited users and free training and all that, or training included. There's a one-time cost and an annual cost. The one-time cost to input all the data, anything that we want to give them, and they'll put it in and digitize, is $3,500. The annual ongoing cost is also $3,500. So the first year is $7,000, and then each subsequent year is $3,500. But then we have access and ready access to all of this mapped data that we can use. I mentioned that to Hearn Profit to see, because my thought is if everything's digitized and everything's out there, would it be more cost efficient for them as they're doing this engineering report or future engineering reports? And they said absolutely. But they also said we also do that kind of service. And I had mentioned the price I was quoted, and they came back with, well, we could do it for $3,000 one time and then $3,000 ongoing. The only concern is they use ArcGIS, which I mentioned is a more complex program, and I have a hard time using it. But so all that said, I'd like to draw up an RFP to send out to this company, Hearn Profit, anyone else who does digitizing, so we can get a few quotes and then assess. I think in the long run it would be beneficial for us to have, but I want to see what we can get. That said, coming back to, so any issues with the RFP for that?
Yeah, you draw up the RFP, we're not gonna vote on it tonight, draw it up,
Sure.
let people read it, and then.
Right,
Okay.
perfect. So,
I've got a question.
yes,
Have you checked with Timmons Group, the people who do all the
we'll certainly send the
properties?
RFP to them. I'm maybe around the same, they might come back with 25 people, we'll just keep going, one by one.
Gotcha.
Playing them off each other. But, right, absolutely, they're a good one because they already have
They
a lot of
already
their
have
data.
the town.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with the cemetery map funding request, the work that's already been put in is that $300 would include work put in and also just a bit of a sweetener for keeping our data, for housing our data, for storing our data in perpetuity. So I would suggest dropping that down to $250. And for the individual at Virginia Tech who's been helping us with that. And if I find time, I can still put that cemetery data. It may be more cost efficient for us to do it that way.
Does he want to send us a bill?
You can.
Okay. Get a bill from him.
Get a bill from him?
Yeah.
Okay. Any objections to $250?
Yeah, we can take it up a bunch of fair.
Okay, perfect.
All right, but get a bill from him.
Okay.
Good deal.
Thank you.
One item in continuing business, Phil did a tremendous water rate analysis, contacting all of the various Department of Correction facilities, and we're not charging enough, obviously. That's
Oh, you
everybody.
did fall off to do that?
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Other thing, council approved some signage for the Veterans Memorial Park on Peter Francisco. We drafted them up, we sent them to the state parks. These are the draft signs, there's some editorial recommendations you're gonna make. I'll send two this way and two that way. I just got those late this afternoon, or else they'd be in color, and I'll work with them to get those done. I'd like to get them in by the 19th of October, if I could, which is the anniversary of the Battle of Yorktown. All right, new business, debt collections, Mr. Miskovic.
The former town manager, had emailed me, if council will recall, several months ago, one of our, engaged citizens, gave us an idea to work with a debt collection agency, on collecting some of these debts that are harder to collect, that we can't necessarily go to court for, or it's not cost effective to go to court for. The former town manager looked into it, and he said, in talking to the individual, I sent him a few company names, in talking to them, it seems like we may be able to use them. 20% contingency fee on monies collected, nothing due until collection. So basically, we would just tack on 20% to whatever the bill is and send it to, and have the debt collection agency look into it. Any thoughts on that?
I will look at it, I believe we can, but there is a requirement first that we have to send out a letter essentially calling on the debt payer to pay it, and then explaining that if they don't, then it will be turned over to collections. But I've done, several of those letters for the town, and so I can gladly provide a template to.
Perfect, and then we'll add your legal bill to the agenda as well.
And I'll verify that, but I'm pretty sure that is.
Are other municipalities using debt collectors to get it?
Because
You gotta split it with them, right? Then they gotta get a cut of it, right?
So they would take 20%. So we would up the bill, up the total by 20%.
You can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can charge them cost.
Bill, yeah.
You just gotta give them a amount of time to pay and say, you go into collection. In my younger years, I've received a few of those from various businesses.
I may have received one or two from those.
You better pay me by this day or you're gonna be charged 15%.
Okay, item B we covered in item 10D, so we'll skip over that. Item C is discharging firearms into town limits. The town clerk sent you a notice that we didn't have an ordinance covering that. And then I researched it, Virginia State Code covers that, actually, so I don't know that we need a town ordinance if Virginia State Code covers it. Chapter 7, Article 4 uses dangerous use of firearms or other weapons, and it addresses the reckless handling of firearms and other laws. Discharging of firearms or missile within or at a building or a dwelling house and willfully discharging firearms in public places. I mean, it's already covered in law. This law applies, period. The ordinance that was submitted included BB guns and pellet guns, and I would be reluctant to, arrest some kid with a red dot or BB gun, frankly. It was just, but that's just me. That's you'll shoot your eye out. What is council's pleasure?
I mean, I am aware of situations where people have discharged firearms in town. Is it a?
Well, state
It's a
law
state
covers,
law.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I've been since I was 4 years old told you can't discharge a firearm in town limits.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes, sir.
there was a shooting a block from here back a couple of years ago, and it included, the investigation resulted in charges for that same offense. It was in front of one of the houses on the same
Yeah, I mean,
block.
state law covers it, so, okay, perfect. All right.
So what you're trying to say is state law, why should we put it on our books?
I'm merely reminding the council that people have been charged for shooting in town on this very street.
All right.
Thought so.
Good enough, unless you want to pursue it, we'll just move right on. All right. Points of personal privilege, Mr. Niskovich.
I've got nothing today.
All right, Mr. Abel. Tonight,
I'm under the weather.
see the light, vote for night.
Yeah, see you later.
Ms. Stetson.
I did meet with Terry Abston one day last week here at the library. We have previously discussed a demonstration garden, which would be managed by the Extension Office, not the responsibility of the town. And moving forward with support from the garden club and the master gardeners, it looks like she's going to apply for some grants, that the best option would be out here between the building and the playground somewhere, but it'd be raised beds, it wouldn't be plowing up the earth. And again, it's their responsibility to keep it tidy and to keep it, and if it's raised beds, it's not.
Who's responsible?
Extension office, 4-H. It's going to be an educational program, that's the idea.
Okay, do we need to take any action?
No.
Okay. No action required by council?
I do think, in view of Mr. Walker's 18 years of service, that we need to talk about some kind of a gift, that official thank you of some sort.
3 months short of 20.
Well, that's a long time.
It is.
We could draft a resolution as well.
Okay. So Mr. Miskovic will draft a resolution, and what, have you got any specific idea for a gift, or?
No. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe just a gift certificate.
Well, council, I would suggest council authorize the vice mayor and the mayor to coordinate and try to come up with some suitable gift for the former town manager.
Maybe apply for something like that.
Let's say 19 years and what?
19 years, 9 months.
$19 and
19 lottery tickets, maybe go ahead and bid.
There you go. Anything else, ma'am?
No.
All right,
thank you.
Mr. Duffy.
Are we gonna move next month's meeting to the first
I'm
Monday?
glad you mentioned it, because I
Because it's
forgot to write it
Veterans
down.
Day falling on the 11th.
All right.
second Monday.
So, does council want to move the meeting to the 4th or to the 18th? The 18th is bad for me, and the 11th is bad for me.
Well, I guess it
Is the election going to interfere with the stuff being set up the night before?
Oh,
We've had that.
As in the
That's
past.
happened in the
They
past.
put it all in here.
We just need to let them know.
They keep it locked up, right?
I got a vote to cast that day.
All,
Who you voted for?
as we all do. All right, with that in mind, is council suitable, is the 4th suitable for everybody?
That works real
It's
well.
good for me.
All right, so we will move council meeting to November 4th. Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think we voted last time, I think we did.
And we all showed up, so I guess it's all right.
Yeah,
Alright.
I mean, I don't think we did.
All right, we'll notify.
You were there.
When in doubt,
I
make a
wasn't there.
motion.
It doesn't matter to me, let's do it.
Was that,
I said, when in doubt, make a motion.
All right,
I moved, okay. Go
Mr.
ahead.
I moved. that we
Second.
Change it to November 4th.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. Motion carries. Very good.
You want my free meal with that?
You done? Dudley?
No, that's it.
Okay. Ms. Bowen?
I've got plenty of thoughts, but I'm going to keep them to myself.
Very well. I said points of personal privilege.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Got it. Mr.
Um,
Reeves?
The library Wi-Fi, what's the deal with that? It's on now, is the library still open? Does it stay on? I feel like why can't we get something that simple straight?
It was a major effort to,
They
get them-
agreed to cut it off until
Till
school
school
started.
And then when school starts, then what?
Well,
It stays on
that's-
24/7?
On. Yeah,
That was,
Oh, man.
now.
but I think we've got more of an issue.
But we don't have any say in that?
Well, actually, wait a minute, has there been a problem since they cut it back on?
The only thing I'm seeing is a bunch of vehicles parked in the parking lot to that corner house and people
I
hanging
was gonna
out.
say that's us, but.
Which courthouse?
The one right here.
One Bobby Wheeler's.
Okay.
There's a lot of teenagers hanging out. And
Yeah, but I've seen them not park
Yeah,
so
but
much
they're not
over
hanging
here,
out
they
there
been
for
parking
the-
in their
But
yard.
they're not hanging out for the Wi-Fi, they're hanging out with.
They're just hanging out, hanging out.
Yeah.
They're
I
not
just feel
dealing
like-
drugs either.
I just feel like we need to have the Wi-Fi off when the library's not open. I don't see why it's so
I can
hard.
follow up
That's
with the
just my
library.
own
Or at
personal-
least by curfew.
Yeah, let me follow up with the
Why is it
letter.
hard? Pull a plug.
Good luck, I tried to get it off in Burkeville.
I'm glad I had it.
If there's an issue, I'd love to hear it, but I just don't get it.
Well, we had countywide broadband.
When is curfew, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock?
11.
11, okay.
Well, it might
But when the
take
library is
an hour.
closed, why keep it on?
I understand.
The reason that they do that, I believe, is for people who don't, for students that don't have Wi-Fi or internet access in their house.
I mean, isn't, and I'm not, again, not being, contentious here, but is it literally so they can come sit in front of the library and use the Wi-Fi?
Yeah,
Okay.
No,
or
technically they can't
schoolwork,
till 11.
homework,
All right.
Well, they can't till
Well, then after curfew, then. I mean,
yeah.
With that in mind, we need to adjourn into executive session to cover in accordance with Virginia State Code 2.2-3711A, subsection 1, personnel. And that's it.
Actually, Mayor, if we can also add 2 for
Yeah,
litigation and 3 real property.
Yeah, or consultation with legal counsel.
That's it.
All right, 2, 3, and what's 2 again?
1, 2, and 3. 2 is consultation with legal counsel, right?
Okay.
Hold on.
I usually have it on there, somebody had it on. All right. So, do we have a motion?
So moved.
No, because I don't,
All right. Mr. Duffy, and Ms. Stinson has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, by like sign. We
It's,
now go into executive session.
it's actually section 7,
Sorry.
consultation with legal counsel.
Okay.
That's just a friendly amendment.
All right. Good. We now go into executive session. Thank you all for coming. Okay. All right. Okay, at this time, we need to certify that executive session was consistent with Virginia State Code.
She took that.
2.2-3711A1,
Section, yeah, A1.
1, 7,
personnel,
and 3.
A3 real property, A7 legal counsel. Mr. Reed,
I certify.
Ms. Bowen,
Certified.
Mr. Duffy,
Certified.
Ms. Stinson,
Certified.
Mr. Knight, Mr. Abel,
Certified.
Mr. Missman.
Yes.
All right, all certified. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to advertise for the hire of another police officer.
I move that we advertise the hire of another police officer.
All right,
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would just like to have a town manager on before we do that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, by like sign.
No,
So we have 2 opposed.
This is just to advertise.
This is just to advertise,
Just an advertise.
not to hire, just to solicit resumes.
well, the council doesn't have any say after we advertise.
Yes, you do.
Not, council appoints 5 positions. None of them is police officer except for the chief
Right.
and the sergeant.
Right.
What are you saying? If we advertise,
To hire a police
It's
officer,
just, it's a normal,
It
it's a
becomes-
normal,
it's a normal personnel matter.
Mm-hmm.
So
It doesn't-
council doesn't get into the weeds on that.
but we don't have, we can still decide not to hire one, correct?
Yeah.
Personnel committee can say.
We don't
Just
have
because
to-
we're advertising.
we don't have to-
Doesn't mean we have to hire.
We
someone.
solicit applications, but we don't have to go through the process.
The
Right.
personnel
Yeah,
committee
just making
makes
sure.
that decision, not the council as a whole.
okay.
Right.
All right, with that in mind, we will also entertain a motion to increase a raise for the employee in question to recognize his CDL.
So moved?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. Motion carries. We also seek authorization or will entertain a motion to authorize to advertise the town manager position in the Crew Burkeville Journal, the Blackstone Courier Record, the Farmville Herald, DML, ICMA, ICMA,
I see a name.
Indeed, and LinkedIn.
Did we talk about the local papers?
No, I assume that I just wrote them down. I mean, that's
Is it
what we
necessary?
normally do. What?
Is it necessary for this position?
I think it's
Why wouldn't it be?
nice to do it. I mean,
Why would it be?
It's extra.
Well,
money.
well,
We're gonna-
Billy's got a right big circulation. And it wouldn't be right to do it in Billy's and not do it in
Crew Burkeville.
Crew Burkeville Journal.
You might luck out and get one read to a Crew Burkeville Journal and fly.
Yeah, because there's still people.
No, I'm
that
talking
get
about
that.
all local papers.
There's still people that
And,
get.
and anyone who knows, who lives in the area knows that this position's open.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that necessarily.
You want to include the farm?
I did want to include the farmable paper. We don't have to. There's also a south side messenger that covers about 5 counties. If you want to include that, okay.
I want to cast as wide a net as possible, but.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so we need authorization or a motion to authorize the advertisement of the town manager position in the Crew-Burkeville Journal, Blackstone Courier Record, Farmville Herald, Southside Messenger, VML, ICMA, Indeed, and LinkedIn. Anything else?
Snag a job?
What? Do all these cost money? Because the Indeed and Snag a Job are,
Those are free, right?
okay, they also get a lot of,
Trash.
exactly.
Okay, all right. We'll take out Indeed and we'll take out Snag a Job. I can take off LinkedIn too, it doesn't bother me.
No,
LinkedIn's
LinkedIn's
probably a
pretty
little bit more
legit.
Yeah,
professional.
LinkedIn is pretty,
Okay.
only a few trashy people.
So we've eliminated Indeed and Snag a Job. Anything else? Is there a motion?
Motion to do it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. Motion carries.
I mean, you writing that down for Tiffany?
I am.
Motion to adjourn.
I've got one more motion to make besides adjourning. I make a motion that we institute a 5-minute time limit on delegations from the public and we enforce it with a timer to everybody.
I agree.
All right, motion.
Whether it's a
Even one
light
that's
or-
put on the program?
Absolutely.
Well,
No,
somebody's
if-
put on an
No,
agenda.
I thought Ms. Davis was here for a very
If
specific.
we invite them,
Yeah, we invite, she was invited.
Right, that's
Yeah.
different, but as a general rule of thumb,
but I would
delegations
maybe
from the
would
public
put,
are
I
5
would
minutes.
put,
And when the timer goes off, you're done.
I wouldn't put her, a situation like Miss Davis coming.
No.
I wouldn't have put it in delegations of the public anyway. I'd have put it in new business. Or-
No, it was in the agenda. Well, we can,
Yeah.
she was on the
We'll figure
agenda.
that out.
Yeah.
My motion is that we put a timer in
Yeah,
here,
but
we
we
can
put
force
it
it
on the
equally
And,
across
well,
the board.
since we're on the topic, since Councilman Reed brought it up,
I thought this was gonna be a simple vote.
well, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And we can limit, time, we can limit place, and we can limit, time, place,
Scope.
and,
Well, we can't limit content.
right, we can't limit content and we can't limit who can speak.
Right.
Right.
So on our handout that we haven't filled out, it says something about under there that, you can only speak on what's written. Theoretically, if they use up 2 of their minutes, 2 of their 5 minutes, and want to talk on something else, we can't stop them because they've gone off script.
I think what we asked for was their written comments, just so we could respond.
Yeah, I would.
That way we could
I always
respond.
ask for written comments.
Right, I'm just talking about the disclaimer on the forms that we have.
Yeah, I was looking for it. I got it in somewhere. Anyway,
Okay, but just so we know that we can't limit who can, so even if it's someone who doesn't live in town, if they want to speak and we give an opportunity for the public to speak, we have to let them speak.
For 5.
But we can for 5
I
minutes.
don't care what they say, as long as they stop when the vote goes off.
Exactly.
all right, so we have a motion from Councilman Reed to limit it to 5 minutes. Is there a second? Any further discussion?
Yes. We invoked a 5-minute rule tonight, now we're passing a 5-minute rule.
See, it was.
Well, the second part of my motion was that we put a timer or something on the table
Okay.
and enforce it.
Okay.
That's,
That's
okay,
the key.
The
That's
rules
fine.
already been in
that's
Yeah.
what I
vote.
thought, okay.
They were already been
So
passed.
basically, all right, so let's.
Whether it's
3
light,
minutes,
I mean, some people got a green light and a red light, right? Some, I mean, we can get the timer, I don't care, just,
Yeah.
All right, so the
and it needs to
motion.
be equal, that way Susan doesn't think we're exploiting her.
That was my
or-
So let me,
I don't want anybody to think.
let me rephrase the motion then. The motion is actually to get a timer,
Yes.
Okay,
all right? Get a timer to enable us to enforce the 5-minute rule,
there you
okay? Because the rule has been there for a while.
go. Right, we just, we haven't been enforcing it. I think
Right,
we
Oh,
should.
well, I indulge.
Good old boy system, but.
Good old
No, I
boy.
mean, it'd be fair,
Mhm.
you
That's
do
what
it
it's
for
been.
one,
You
you
just
do
let
it for
'em go.
all.
All right, okay.
The timer is a visible.
So we have a motion from Councilman Reed, we have a second from Councilman Knight. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. Motion carries.
One thing, put a trap door up there, and if they go past 5 minutes, hit the leaf.
It's
Big lookout.
concrete, man, it's concrete up there.
Yeah.
All right, with that in mind, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Wright, Mr. Abel, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign.